Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Good morning, everyone. How is everybody doing? It is time to watch another rocket launch. This is another Starlink launch for SpaceX. I feel like we're probably going to get sick of this. It seems like, these are honestly about as routine as they get these days. Let's show you guys what we're going to be watching today. So, of course, anytime you need to know anything about any upcoming rocket launch, you're like, what launches this today, or what launches tomorrow? You're hearing people talk about a launch. Guess what, my friends? You can go to a little website called everydayastronaut.com. You can click on a little section called Prelaunch Previews. So right here, just click on Prelaunch Previews. We've got upcoming launches and articles for the upcoming launches. So today, this is the top one right now. This is Falcon 9 Block 5, Starlink 10. The naming scheme of Starlink is confusing. Don't worry, we're still just going by whatever SpaceX says. So Starlink 10, even though it's like the 11th Starlink launch, actually it's like the 11th and a half Starlink launch. But we're going with them. We are going with them. Okay, so if you go, all you do, click on Prelaunch Preview. So this is taking off today, August 18th at 10:31 local EDT time, and that's 14:31 UTC. And of course, we have a countdown clock over there for you guys in the top right-hand corner of your screen. That's when this launch will be taking off. So, yeah. All right, so mission name. This is Starlink version 1.0. L10, the 11th batch of Starlink. Like I said, it's confusing because it's the 11th batch, but it's the 10th, like, fully operational, truly Starlink satellites. The other ones are kind of like betas, so to say. But it also is including 3 other satellites on it. These are the Skysat 19 through 21 of their constellation for Planet Labs, 19th, 20th, and 21st Earth observation satellites, which are really high definition Earth observation satellites. So, very cool. The rocket, okay, the customer is SpaceX. The launch provider is SpaceX. The customer is SpaceX and Planet Lab. So Planet Lab, as we've been seeing lately, they've done this, this is their 3rd time now, where they take out a couple of the Starlink satellites at the top. They put an actual like payload adapter to be able to put other satellites on top of the stack of Starlink satellites, so they can even launch customer payloads. Now, of course, customer payloads, they have to be going into a similar orbit, so you can't, we can't throw anything up on there. They can't just be like, oh, you're going to geostationary orbit, here, hitch a ride with our Starlink satellites. They have to be satellites that are going to low Earth orbit. Lots of times these are just, technology demonstrator satellites, or something that needs to be in that high inclination orbit, relatively high inclination orbit, like the Starlink satellites, and low Earth orbit as well. So yeah, the rocket today is Falcon 9 Block 5. Get ready for this. B1049.6. So don't forget the period and then the number after that. That denotes how many times this exact booster will have flown. So this is its 6th flight. So this is the first time that a rocket is flying for the 6th time for SpaceX. So they're really getting up there with the booster reuse stuff. It's so funny how it went from this like experimental, maybe someday type of thing, maybe we could get some reuse, and people were starting to doubt that it was going to work when they had the kind of the pre-Block 5 boosters, kind of the full thrust and version 1.2 or whatever you want to say, or Block 4, however you want to say that. It was just funny because back in the day, it was like, oh man, they're only reusing them once. I think they reused one pre-Block 5 twice is all. So to see it flying for a 6th time is definitely showing it's a good sign of things to come for the reuse of rockets. And of course, they're hoping that the life goal of Block 5 Falcon 9 is stated to be 10, and it's kind of it's still on a per evaluation period. So they could always, it might exceed that, it might not quite get to 10, but it really, a lot of people are saying anything over like 4 or 5 is already a net win for the company. So seeing 6 is great news. 10 would be fantastic. 10 would be that goal that they're going for. So yeah, really cool. All right, so launch location. This is Space Launch Complex 40, or SLC 40, at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station / Space Force Station. They still kind of are like in this tween stage right now where they don't quite keep it straight for us, and that's always fun. But the good news is, as we know, you can tell which site it's at, whether it's Cape Canaveral Air Force Station or NASA Kennedy Space Center. Even though they're both on like the same strip of land, they are separated. So, and you can tell which one it is by seeing if there's an S in front of the LC. So SLC 40 means slick or Space Launch Complex, or SLIC 40. That means it's at the Cape Canaveral. And if it's just LC, Launch Complex, that would be at Kennedy Space Center. Payload mass. This is a big one. 18,000 kilograms. Yeah, so for around 41,000 pounds. And that's actually... That's up there, guys. That is up there. For a Falcon 9 being reused, yeah. These satellites end up in about a 55 kilometer low Earth orbit, but initially about a 210 by 366. And the satellites do have their own built-in propulsion. They're a krypton thruster. And what that does is it slowly circularizes and eventually raises the orbit of all 58 of these satellites until they're eventually in that 550 kilometer by 550 kilometer, which is why that's one of the reasons why you can see them a lot easier right after they launch, and why a lot of people freak out that they're so bright. And then once they're in their operational orbit, it's like, wait, where are they? Like, I've gone out looking for them and I can't find, I will spend nights trying to find and get a good pass of a Starlink. And it's getting hard. Once they're up in their operational period in their orbits, it's very hard to see. Okay, so how's the weather looking currently? 80% go as of yesterday. But I think as of right now, it's looking great. And I've got, by the way, I do have the weather pulled up, or the audio pulled up. So you might hear some radio chatter. We've been hearing some stuff. Nothing seems out of the norm. I've been listening in. Some people I saw on Twitter, someone was confused saying they thought it was scrubbing. But they always talk over the comms about the scrub procedures. So they always go over, like, if today's launch would scrub, abort, we go to 10 dot blah, 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 blah. They have like all these procedures, and they're just going over that on the radio comms. So someone might have heard that because they said over the radio, I thought they were talking about a scrub. It's like, no, they probably were talking about a scrub, but it's more what to do if there is a scrub, if this launch were to be delayed. Are they attempting to recover the first stage? Yes, they are. And they're hoping this thing will be 634 kilometers down range. So yeah, pretty far down range. But that's the normal for these Starlink missions. It's a pretty standard, pretty much a standard trajectory at this point. And yes, they are also attempting to recover the fairings. They will be using Go Mystery and Go Mischief that are already downrange, hoping to be able to catch these fairings. We will see. And are these fairings new? No. These fairings, actually, these fairings did not fly last on... Oh, yeah, they did fly. Yeah, on Starlink L4. You're right. Yes, not the... Yep. This is right. They did last fly on Starlink 4, basically. So this will be the first 6th flight of a booster, if that makes sense. The 91st flight of a Falcon 9. The 40th reflight of a booster. The 5th reflight of a fairing. The 13th mission for SpaceX in 2020. And the 100th mission for SpaceX ever. So, yeah, happy century or whatever, SpaceX. That's huge. Already at their 100th mission as a company. And even at 91st for the Falcon 9. The Falcon 9 is coming up on its 100th flight. And that'll happen this year. At this rate, we had a little bit slower the first half of the year, and things are kind of getting back online. And these Starlink missions are literally coming up every 2 weeks. So there's a good chance we'll easily see the 100th flight of the Falcon 9 this year. And maybe we'll get close to that, 8 or 9 reuse of a Falcon, maybe more like 8. I'd be surprised if this particular booster would fly even once more. So maybe only like 7 or 8, but we're getting there. And of course, here's a graphic here by Jeff Barrett, and Stanley Creative is now helping with some of the 3D renders. I think they're... I love how the booster is going to be getting sootier and sootier and sootier. So here's what Starlink looks like. Now, this was with the 3 Skysats installed when it had 58 Starlink satellites. And this is similar to how the Planet Lab things will look. So, yeah. And then if you need to learn more about, all this stuff, you can just read through this article here. But give a big, huge shout out to, oh man, look at how great these are getting. Trevor, thank you so much. Trevor Sesnick, everyone say thank you to Trevor for helping with his article, and to the rest of the website crew for keeping this stuff all up to date and just getting better and better and better. So yeah, awesome. Our website crew is awesome. Thank you guys. All right, we have a lot of questions here, and I'm already behind. So first off, good morning. I hope you guys have plenty of coffee. I grabbed the biggest mug in the world, and I'm sure I feel like we need to kind of talk news. I feel like this is turning into like a news show of like, because don't forget, if you guys want space news and you need to know, like, you know, if you saw something on Twitter that you're really excited about, you want to hear me talk about it every week on Friday, I have a podcast that comes out. It's called Our Ludicrous Future. You can hear my thoughts on everything spaceflight and stuff like that by going to olfpod.com if you don't want to type out ludicrous, because trust me, it's hard. Good luck. But we have it here on YouTube and on any of your favorite podcast players. So if you want to hear me talking you through the space news, we talk about green, like EVs, kind of futurism and like future power generation and stuff like that. It's me and two other guys, Joe Scott and Ben Solons. And we just nerd out every week, and I'm the space guy, so I talk spaceflight, and it's a lot of fun. So if you need that news, you know, if you're wanting to hear my thoughts every week on all the cool stuff that came out, definitely check that out. But meanwhile, I do want to show you guys something that was honestly quite exciting, because as particular Elon Musk did share this just yesterday. Look, the freaking Raptor engine reached 330 bar of chamber pressure. The target for this engine initially is 300. And last we knew, I think they were at 276, if I recall. So all of a sudden they got up to 330. I mean, we're talking about like not just breaking the record, because previously about 275 is as high of chamber pressure as any engine's ever seen. And all of a sudden to get 330. And by the way, look at how I feel like the engines get, which is great. And Elon's been saying that forever. Like, yeah, it'll eventually just be like really simple. It just looks really complicated because they have so many additional sensors and so many other. It just looks like it's like it's slimming down. So 330 bar without exploding. Now, of course, someday that ended up giving them close to. So serial number 40 is about to be tested and has several upgrades over the 330 bar engine. I didn't even realize it says several upgrades over the 300. I thought this was the 330 bar engine. Okay. For reference, 330 bar in Raptor produces about 225. So that's about, what is that? About 200 or 2,250 kilonewtons or so. 500,000 pounds of thrust. So we're really talking about a powerful engine. And the cool thing is, I had asked him too about, you know, so of course, if you don't have no idea what I'm talking about and why this is exciting, this is the engine that will be powering Starship. No, just to answer it right out of the gates, they will not ever be using it for the Falcon 9. It's like, even don't touch the Falcon 9 anymore. Every dollar you spend trying to make the Falcon 9 better, you could have been putting that into getting Starship off the ground sooner. And as soon as Starship's off the ground, boom, we're talking about Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy being obsolete really quickly. So get Starlink or get Starship going ASAP and put all that money and development money into Starship. So no, the Raptor engine will not. It's not a simple swap. Like, whoop, we just pop this in. It's not Kerbal Space Program. There's no point in trying to throw a Raptor engine up under there. But interestingly, I answered someone's question about the Merlin engine. Merlin can throttle down, I think, a little below 40%. And it can do that largely in part because it has a pintle injector. This is an injector that basically slides to have the... Oh, did you guys lose me? Weird. That's a YouTube thing. Sorry, guys. Hopefully you guys are still there. I'm still clean on my end. Huh. You guys are still there? Some people are getting lag. Some people... Huh. Everyone refresh your YouTube stream. I think it's a YouTube issue. Okay, so the cool thing is, so the Merlin engine can throttle using a pintle injector. That's one of the main ways it can throttle, which is cool because you can kind of keep the... it makes it so you have a really wide range of throttle ability. Now, the Raptor engine does not have that. The Raptor has coaxial swirl injectors, and I'll get into a thing about injectors someday as I'm still trying to learn about them. But what I had heard is you couldn't really lower Raptor's minimum thrust to below 50%. That's just kind of like it gets really hard. And Elon corrected me last night. He said now that max demonstrated Raptor thrust is basically around 225 tons, and minimum is 90. So Elon news. And so because of that, today we're doing 10% off of the full flow stage combustion cycle shirt. As you guys might know, this is definitely, it's literally one of Elon's favorite shirts, as you guys probably know. Yeah, it's one of my favorite t-shirts from Elon Musk. This is 10% off today. If you guys want to help me continue to do what I do, pick up some cool merch, go to shop.everydayastronaut.com. Use coupon code LAUNCHDAY, all one word, lowercase launch day at checkout for 10% off of this shirt. Today, for the next 24 hours, we'll be doing that. But also, while you're here, check out all of our other cool new merchandise, like the Future Martian shirt, these new keychains, full flow stage combustion cycle hoodies that are these are super sick. They show you the chamber pressure. This is funny because now this is actually outdated, 300 bar, but the operational pressures will be about 300 bar, by the way. 330, 325, 330, 350. Might be later on, but 300 bar is still the operation, so getting it beyond that. But then, we've got the specific impulse and the thrust here too, so just kind of a fun little nod to the Raptor engine. But you can pick these up by going to shop.everydayastronaut.com or everydayastronaut.com/shop. Whatever you prefer, shop.everydayastronaut.com. Help me continue to do what I do and get some cool stuff for yourself. Okay, so I think we're into go time here. I'm pulling up. It looks like I think YouTube's having another day at it right now. Okay, we do have SpaceX radio. Let me pull this up real quick. It's funny that I have not heard a single drip of radio chatter though. So I'm going to keep that up until this is done. Okay, you'll see here. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's keep going. If you guys are lagging, refresh YouTube. It's a YouTube thing. Weird. Yeah, I think YouTube's kind of crapping the bed right now, and I don't know. Just hit refresh if you need to. But let's get into some of your guys' things. First off, we had a membership from Singularity Gaming. GG, thanks. It says hope everything's normal. I hope so too. I definitely do. I think it will be. Hetty says, good morning, Tim. My question is, when they say the Falcon 9 flight computers are in those in the rocket, if so, where and are there computers in the first stage that help guide the ship? Okay, so let's see. I'm a little the help guide to the ship. If so, where are those located? So those, yes, the upper stage and the first stage both have their own flight computers. When they're flying with Dragon has its own flight computer. There's even flight computers on each engine. There's like literally flight computers galore on the Falcon 9. And one of the reasons is they used off-the-shelf flight computers and redundant flight computers as well. So, yeah, it's actually it's pretty cool though, because it means that, there obviously has to be separate flight computers when you're still controlling a stage after it separates. So I don't know exactly where they're located. I would assume like in the inner stage or for the second stage somewhere up above the top bulkhead. I don't actually know where the flight computers are exactly. And yeah, but yeah, there's definitely lots of flight computers actually. There's a lot of flight computers. Okay, oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Happy hacking video blog. Really appreciate that. Good seeing you around. This is a good question here from Stephen Clark. How often are engines replaced in reused boosters? We don't really have too much of a sense of that. They don't like publish that, but I don't think they always take one out. I think they would only do that if something doesn't pop up right. I think they try to actually just straight up reuse the engines on the boosters and not even have to worry about them. But that's my assumption. I don't know how often they get replaced. I don't think they tear all of them off every flight. Maybe they do, but unfortunately, we just don't really have a lot of information on that per se. But yeah, let's see. Oh man, hold on. This is a good. So thank you, Dan, for the membership. This is from Casey. Casey O'Rourke says, hello from Cedar Rapids. Thank you for making videos that help me get through this hot week without power. Okay, so if you guys don't know, Cedar Rapids and a lot of areas around kind of central Iowa got absolutely just hit really hard by what do you call it, a derecho? I had never heard the word before like last week, but it's like 100-mile-an-hour storm winds and like 110 mile an hour, I think even. So sorry, like 160 kilometer an hour winds got hit really hard. Tons of the city is still without power, and it's over a week later. It just absolutely got slammed So yeah, if you guys haven't heard, or if there's any way you guys can look up like Cedar Rapids aid, if you guys can send a buck or two to the people that still don't have power, that are living off generators, that are helping to have a lot of trees cleaned up. If there's anything you guys can do to help, as a fellow Iowan, that'd mean a lot to me and my community and my state. So yeah, look up Cedar Rapids, Iowa Relief Fund or something. I'm sure there's something out there to help some of the people. I've got family down there, so yeah. All right, guys, let's tune in here. I'll try to get to the rest of your guys' things here in just 1 second.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, August 18th, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 10:31 a.m. Eastern Time launch from pad Slick 40 at our Cape Canaveral launch site in Florida. Hello from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Kate Tice, and I'm a senior certification engineer here at SpaceX. You're watching a live webcast for our 11th Starlink mission. This morning's launch represents a couple of milestones: our 14th mission of 2020, our 90th Falcon 9 mission, and the first time for reusing a booster for the 6th time. To date, we've launched nearly 600 Starlink satellites to orbit. As a reminder, Starlink is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote or rural areas where connectivity is limited or completely unavailable. We have 3 small-sat passengers on board today's mission for our customer Planet, the operators of the largest constellation of Earth observation satellites. You may remember we also successfully launched 3 Skysats for Planet on a Starlink mission in June earlier this year. The satellites on today's mission will enable high-resolution imaging of a single location up to 12 times a day. They'll be joining 18 Skysats already in orbit, completing Planet's fleet of 21 satellites, making it the largest high-resolution fleet of satellites in orbit to date. Now, in order to make room for those 3 rideshare passengers, we will be launching 58 Starlink satellites today into low Earth orbit instead of the usual 60, as we have done in the past. Planet's Skysats will deploy in 3 sequential maneuvers beginning at about 12.5 minutes after liftoff, and the Starlink satellites will deploy at 46 minutes after liftoff. So at this point, we're at just under 8.5 minutes until liftoff, and right now all systems are go for an on-time liftoff this morning.
So notice that Kate said Starlink 11 like we said before. The naming's really confusing.
There on your screen is Falcon 9, our 2-stage liquid-fueled launch vehicle, getting ready for launch from Space Launch Complex 40, or Slick 40, in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Falcon 9 stands 70 meters tall, which is just greater than the wingspan of a 747 aircraft. Today's flight will be the 6th flight for this booster. It previously supported the Telstar 18 Vantage mission, Iridium 8, the first Starlink mission, as well as the 3rd and 8th Starlink missions. And this will mark the first time that we're flying a booster for its 6th mission. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle that you see there is the first stage. And if you look closely, you can actually see the white clouds there are covering it up at the moment, but there are soot markings still on the vehicle from its previous 5 flights. Yeah. The first stage has 9 Merlin engines that do the bulk of the work to get Falcon 9 off the ground and up into the thinner parts of the Earth's atmosphere before separating from second stage and making its way back down to Earth for landing. Today we will be attempting to recover this first stage for the 6th time. This time we'll be doing that on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which is currently stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. You can see it there on your screen, about 350 nautical miles northeast of our Cape Canaveral, Florida launch site. On top of the first stage is the inner stage, which is the black segment of the rocket that you see there. The reason it's black as opposed to the rest of the vehicle is because it is unpainted TPS, or thermal protective system. And that that TPS is what protects the composite material in which the inner stage is made out of. The inner stage is what connects the first stage to the second stage and protects the second stage's single Merlin vacuum, or MVAC, engine during launch. That MVAC engine ignites after the first stage separates and will propel the second stage along with Planet's 3 Skysats and our 58 Starlink satellites into an elliptical orbit above Earth's surface. Like I mentioned earlier, Planet's Skysats will deploy sequentially at about 12 minutes and 30 seconds after liftoff, and our Starlink satellites will deploy around T plus 46 minutes. Falcon 9 has been loading propellant since T minus 35 minutes. As a reminder, Falcon 9 uses a rocket-grade kerosene, which we call RP1, for our fuel, and super-chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX, as our oxidizer. Currently, RP1 and LOX are nearly fully loaded on both stages, and liquid oxygen will continue to be topped off right until the last minutes of the countdown. The stack of 58 Starlink satellites and 3 Skysats are safely enclosed right inside of that structure, our payload fairing, which is a 17-foot diameter structure at the top of the rocket. The fairing protects the satellites from aerothermal heating, aerodynamic loads, and contamination during the ascent phase. Once we reach the vacuum of space, we'll jettison those fairing halves while the second stage will continue on to orbit. The fairing halves that we're using today previously flew on the Starlink mission that we launched earlier this year in January. We will be attempting to recover these fairing halves today using our recovery ships, which you can see there on your screen, Ms. Chief and Ms. Tree. At approximately T plus 40 minutes, or roughly 2 minutes before landing, the recovery team will perform a poll to confirm if we're good to make a safe catch attempt. As you might imagine, weather plays a big factor into that go, no-go decision for the catch attempt, as it can impact not only the sea states for the boats, but also the fairing's altitude, position, and speed, which impact all how the fairing will fall back to Earth. As of right now, weather is looking good. We have got blue skies and just a couple of clouds there at Cape Canaveral, Florida. The vehicle, the satellites, and the weather and the range are all looking good for an on-time liftoff of 10:31 a.m. Eastern at just under 4 minutes from now.
Sweet. I don't know if Kate will say it here, but I'll just in case, this is a good time to confirm that the pointy end is up and the flaming end is down. This is a great shot.
The Starlink program, little info for you. Our mission is to bring high-speed, low-latency internet to people all over Earth. Every one of these Starlink missions gets us closer to achieving that goal. Some of the most exciting opportunities for Starlink are locations where traditional fiber or cable is simply not practical, such as rural and remote communities. It's also exciting for places where fiber and cable are impossible, such as aircrafts and cruise ships. This is a big endeavor, and we have a lot of work ahead of us, but today's launch gets us one step closer to these goals. If you're interested in getting future news about our Starlink service, head on over to starlink.com and sign up for updates. And if you're interested in helping roll out Starlink to the world, our Redmond, Washington location, which is just outside of Seattle, is looking for talented software engineers. The software engineers here at SpaceX get to drive work across exciting projects such as our rockets, spacecrafts, and satellites and ground systems. Send your resume to softwarejobs@spacex.com if you're interested in joining our team. So right now, we are just under 2.5 minutes from liftoff, and Falcon 9 is moving into the final stages of the countdown. Right now, the first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Fuel is completely loaded. LOX on the first stage is also completely loaded, and we are continuing to top off the liquid oxygen loading on the second stage. Super chilled liquid oxygen, which, like I mentioned, we call LOX, is our propellant oxidizer, and that's what is creating those white clouds around the vehicle that you see there. This happens when liquid oxygen is exposed to ambient air, which is warmer, and causes the liquid oxygen to evaporate into gas and form those white clouds. The first stage should finish prop loading here, and actually I just noticed that all fuel tanks and liquid oxygen tanks are now fully loaded, so complete there on the prop load. Here in just 30 seconds or so, we'll hear a call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. It means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. At T minus 2 seconds, the Merlin engines will light and liftoff will be commanded to the vehicle at T minus 0.
I should interject real quick. If you guys saw that big puff of clouds there, that was because they have topped off the second stage. There's still a lot of pressure in the lines, so they bleed out the lines. They bleed out and just kind of dump a little bit of the excess oxygen that's in the line. So now the second stage is fully pressed.
Falcon 9 startup.
So remember, if you were to go up and touch this rocket right now, it is unbelievably cold. It's
Stage
filled
2,
with
press for
cryogenic
flight.
propellant.
Stage 2, press for flight.
LDs go for launch. LDs go for launch.
They're making this look so easy now.
T minus 30 seconds. T minus 30 seconds.
Okay, so we're in the final phases of the countdown. Let's
Stage
watch
1 to
as
startup
Falcon 9
pressures.
takes
T-minus
our
15
58
seconds.
Starlink satellites
T-minus
and 3
15
Planet
seconds.
Skysats into orbit.
10, 9, 10, 8, 9, 7, 8, 6, 7, 5,
You're
6,
double count
4,
down.
5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 0, 1. Ignition, 0. And liftoff for the Falcon 9. Liftoff for the Falcon 9. Good Starlink.
Awesome. Awesome. Double countdown. Looking good.
Stage 1, propulsion done.
Got a shaky cam.
A successful liftoff of Falcon 9
Power and
from
telemetry
Space
nominal.
Launch Complex 40 for this 11th Starlink mission. The 3 Planet Skysats and our 58 Starlink satellites are on their way to space.
Sweet. Oh, there we go. Max Q right
About
there.
10
Look at that.
seconds, we will be approaching max Q. Merlin engines are
Vehicle
now throttling
supersonic.
down
Vehicle
as they
supersonic.
anticipate the moment of greatest aerodynamic pressure.
Max Q. Max Q.
All right, we just went through max Q, and the vehicle is now supersonic,
Yeah, baby.
and Merlin engines have throttled back up. So coming up in about a minute, we'll have 3 events happening back to back. First will be main engine cutoff, or MECO. This is where all 9 Merlin engines will shut off to slow the vehicle down in preparation for the second event, stage separation. This is where the first stage separates from the second stage, with stage 1 starting to make its way back to Earth for landing, while second stage will kick off the third event in this sequence, SES-1, or Second Engine Start 1. This is where that Merlin vacuum engine will ignite and begin to propel the second stage along with our payloads into orbit. Main engine cutoff coming up in about 20 seconds.
I still just love watching that exhaust plume get
Everything
wider and
continuing to
wider.
look nominal for stage 1.
As the atmosphere is thinner and thinner.
We have MECO. We have MECO.
Stage separation confirmed. Stage separation confirmed.
Sweet. Okay, now
And
do
in-back
have-
ignition. And in-back ignition.
All right, so there we saw those 3 events all happen in quick succession. Stage 1 is now making its way back to Earth. There on the left-hand side of your screen, we can see the grid fins slowly deploying. And on the right-hand side of your screen, the Merlin vacuum engine beginning to develop that healthy orange glow as it continues its journey on to orbit.
Fairing separation confirmed. Fairing
We're just a few
separation
seconds away
confirmed.
from fairing deployment.
Boom.
There we go. Visual confirmation of fairing deployment. Once again, as a reminder, we flew those fairings on a previous Starlink mission in January earlier this year. So with that, we have successfully reused this fairing pair. Like I said earlier, we will be attempting to catch those fairing halves with our recovery ships, Ms. Tree and Ms. Chief.
So I should point out that we do have simulated telemetry. So this is based on previous missions here of the first stage. So in the top right, you're seeing simulated stage 1 telemetry. So notice that this first stage is slowing down now because it's obviously no longer accelerating. And you'll notice that the second stage down on the bottom left is continuing to accelerate. And of course, the first stage is actually still coasting up. So it's still going up and eventually it'll fall because it was going at an arc like this. So it cut off its engines, then it'll coast up, and it's going to start falling back down here pretty soon.
Earth.
So that's we're still kind of playing around with this with Declan Murphy from Flight Club. So if you guys, hopefully we'll get this better and better tweaked each mission. But I think we're pretty bang on here today. So we'll see if how well we did here with the telemetry, with the simulated telemetry, because it's not live data acquisition from stage 2, which a lot of you pointed out last time. Thank you for reminding me.
Landing burn. This is a single engine burn that will bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to make a soft landing on the drone ship.
So let's see here. There we go. Yep.
The 58 Starlink satellites that are being carried along on the right-hand side of your screen there by the second stage will be joining our constellation of over 600 Starlink satellites that are already on orbit, which once again are designed to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people on Earth. This is particularly important for places where good internet is hard to access, as well as places where wired or grounded internet is impossible, such as ships and airplanes. We're 1 minute away from the beginning of that entry burn. On the left-hand side of your screen, we can see stage 1 coasting using nothing but those grid fins. We see them articulate here and there as they continue to steer. And we also utilize nitrogen gas for occasional little bursts of that nitrogen gas, and we use that for attitude control, which sometimes you can catch a glimpse of as little white puffs.
So she was meaning right now, obviously the vehicle's outside of the bulk of the atmosphere. So those grid fins aren't going to be doing anything, which is why they aren't moving yet. But once they do the entry burn, they're in a thick enough amount of atmosphere, the grid fins really start to bite, and you'll see them really starting to move around and continue to aim the booster. But up in the vacuum of space, you'll see that they mostly just use those cold gas thrusters.
Again, this is the first of 2 burns intended to slow the vehicle's velocity down as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there we can see that the entry burn has begun and will last for about 20 seconds.
Stage 2 continues on nominal trajectory.
Again, this burn utilizes 3 engines at the base of the rocket. And there we can see the entry burn has concluded.
Yeah, the telemetry is pretty bang on, Declan.
Second stage trajectory is still looking nominal.
That's awesome. So now it's just slowing down because the atmosphere is getting thicker and thicker. So the atmosphere is actually taking a lot of the velocity out of that first stage. But they had to slow down beforehand because otherwise the atmosphere would tear apart the booster because it doesn't have like a big, thick heat shield. Like, it doesn't have big, huge, thick heat shield like other things. Now we will see it cut out. That's normal. Plasma builds up and we lose video normally. But
once again, we are carrying 58 Starlink satellites prepared to join the over 600 Starlink satellites that are already on orbit, as well as 3 rideshare satellites for our customer planets. Those 3 Skysats will join the 18 Skysats that are already also on orbit. We're about 15 seconds away from landing burn.
Terminal guidance. Terminal guidance.
Look at that. That's about terminal velocity of the first stage. There
Stage
must be
1 landing burn.
Wow, Declan, you nailed it.
And landing burn has begun.
So it's
You
closing
should
in
see
here.
the
Stage
plume
two
from the
MTS is
rocket
saved.
appear on the screen here.
Stage
in
1
a
landing
second.
leg deploy. Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Wow. Wow.
Our touchdown and shut
Nailed
off.
it.
Successful
Stage 1 landing
landing
confirmed.
of
Stage 1
the
landing
first
confirmed.
stage booster.
New life leader.
Once again, this is the 6th time that we have utilized this booster on a mission, also marking its 6th landing. This is the Of Course I Still Love You drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean.
That is awesome. Yeah, that gives you a good sense of how far the first stage goes. Not very far. Not very
So
far.
turning our attention back to second stage, we've had
Nominal
confirmation
orbit insertion.
of
Nominal
second engine
orbit
cutoff, or SECO 1. And we also have confirmation of a good orbit. So now that stage 2 is going to coast in this orbit for another 3.5 minutes, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back at T plus 12 minutes for the deployment of Planet's 3 Skysats.
So I have to fix something really quick. The echo was on my end. I accidentally left the audio, just the mission control up in the other window, and I couldn't move it without ruining the shot. So I'm sorry that we did hear occasionally like a double countdown and stuff. That was on me. That was on me. I'm sorry. But yeah, they're going to be right back. So let's answer a few more questions. Since I'm super late on these, GG, as you noticed, yes, we did have stage 1 telemetry. It was simulated telemetry, and it was pretty bang on. Telemetry would actually be data coming from the vehicle showing us like what it's actually doing. And what this was Declan Murphy from flightclub.io. If you guys haven't visited flightclub.io, definitely check it out. It's super cool. You can see all of the telemetry and all of the things from these launches. It's really impressive stuff. But what him and Andrew Taylor, my producer, editor, producer guy now, that's helping a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, they worked out a way to make it so that we could visually do that at the same time and overlay the data that Declan came up with, basically following the previous flight profiles. And boom, we put it up on screen for you guys. And it ended up being pretty much bang on. Genuinely, really, really, really impressive. Yeah, maybe it's not a bad idea, as Austin says in our Discord. If you missed the first call, luckily we got a second and sometimes a third call out for all of the things in today's mission. Maybe the echo wasn't a bad thing. Maybe it's just a way to get more and more. Oh, so yeah, we got the wizard and the double wizard. We got 2 wizards. If you guys, everyone, hey, by the way, I need to say hi to Discord. I forgot to say hi to you guys earlier. Howdy, Discord. If you guys do want to join our Discord channel, that is a Patreon exclusive perk. Go to patreon.com/everydayastronaut. Join our awesome community. We have just the nicest community, spaceflight community in the world, I think. Everyone's just super helpful. We're all here to learn and come together and just hang out during these wild, wild times. So I love it. Hi, guys. Yes, Declan is here. I've seen this from quite a few people saying the boosters need names. Yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm actually a numbers guy, so the numbers make sense to me. Like, I'll remember the number of a booster before I remember. Oh.
We had an on-time liftoff from Cape Canaveral, and everything is looking nominal for our second stage. As we can see on our screen there, the stack of payloads. We are carrying 58 Starlink satellites, as well as 3 rideshare satellites for our customer Planet. We're about 10 seconds away from the first of 3 deployments for those Planet Skysats.
It's cool they push them back.
Skysat 21 deploy confirmed.
Okay, deployment confirmed for that first Skysat. The first of 3 this morning. And there on your screen, at the end of the stack, slowly making its way away from the second stage, we can see that first Skysat moving along.
Skysat 20 deploy confirmed.
And confirmation that the second Skysat has deployed. We'll see that here momentarily. There it is at the end of the stack again. And awaiting the third and final deployment for this rideshare. customer.
And Skysat 19 deploy confirmed.
And deployment confirmed for that
Yeah.
third and final Skysat for our customer planet. These 3 Skysats will be joining 18 already on orbit, which will complete the fleet of 21 and make it the largest high-resolution fleet of satellites in orbit to date. Like I mentioned before, they'll be capable of imaging a single location up to 12 times a day. Right now, stage 2 is going to continue to coast in this orbit for a few more minutes. During this time, it will start to spin along its central axis, which will give those Starlink satellites the momentum they require to space themselves out over time after deployment at T plus 46 minutes. So right now, we're going to take a break, but stay tuned because we'll be back at T plus 45 minutes in preparation for the deployment of those 58 Starlink satellites. Stay with us.
Okay, looks like we got a half hour to get some questions answered here. All right, it's looking good. So I should mention, I didn't realize, well, I guess they did it with the last one too, but that they actually do shoot the satellites backwards. They shoot them retrograde. Now, all these little satellites, at least of this scale, still have their own bit of propulsion and station keeping so that they can continually shift their orbits and move away from each other and things like that. So don't forget with spaceflight, you can just do a tiny impulse and slowly raise the orbit of one satellite just a tiny little bit, and it'll eventually, with enough time, end up, you could end up on the opposite side of the planet from each other orbiting, and then lower it and match orbits. So it doesn't take much. It just, if you have a lot of time, which, a lot of these satellites will be up there for years and years and years. So something that takes maybe 2 or 3 months to fully get into their operational, deployment or their operational state isn't a huge thing, but that is just something kind of fun to note. So, I never know how to say it, but Own High in our Discord asks, does rideshare mean that SpaceX Launch is effectively free? Probably not. I don't think these small, these are pretty small satellites. They could have launched on a much smaller vehicle. They probably could have launched on, say, on Rocket Lab's Electron. I forget how heavy were they. Were they about 225 each? So the customer likely paid $10 to $15 million for the ride. I don't quite think they can launch a Falcon 9 for quite that cheap, but it's probably getting darn close. It definitely helps with that marginal cost. I mean, pretty cool that SpaceX can actually come close to breaking even while developing the infrastructure for the world's biggest internet constellation. So let's see here. This is a good question from Lucas. Yes, Lucas wants to know if they're still working on reducing the reflectivity. Yes. So the last Starlink launch was the one that every single Starlink satellite had the sunshade. The sunshade, between the sunshade and anti-reflective coating paint, I think they've made some substantial difference. A lot of people that are astronomers and stuff that are paying attention to this have noticed the apparent magnitude drop from when it's getting into higher orbits. Again, at first, when they're deployed and people freak out, they are bright. Don't get me wrong. They're like a magnitude 2 in brightness. They're like as bright as Venus or something. They're really, really, really bright. But once they get away from us, they drop down to a magnitude 4. So the higher the number, the lower the apparent magnitude. And so 4 is like, yeah, you can still see it kind of. But now with this new technology and with the different things that they're doing to help prevent glare, they're getting down to a 7, which is like you physically can't see them with the naked eye. And these are in the worst case scenarios. Don't forget. People tend to forget that these satellites, you can really only see them just after dusk or just after sunset and just before sunrise, maybe 90 minutes-ish before and after. So people keep thinking, oh, the night sky might be ruined. Go try to find them. Like go out. Seriously, go to the dark sky, like go somewhere where it's nice and dark and do some good old like astrophotography or, just some observations. And you'll actually have it can be physically impossible in the middle of the night because there's nothing reflecting. That's oftentimes when you're doing astronomy is when it's dark enough to actually, get some good stuff. Otherwise, And I used to do this a lot. I used to go out into the country, into the desert, all over the place and do astrophotography. And the thing that ruined pictures for me was planes. I always had planes and images all the time. Like that was a common thing. But now, if you were doing this in the middle of the night, especially at a maximum magnitude of 7, like it's not hardly a thing anymore. But yeah, that's a whole debate. I actually did an interview with a friend, Johnny, and he's working on a really cool documentary basically about I think he's calling it like Goodbye Night Sky or something, and it's really interesting. So I'm kind of he's getting good perspective on how all that stuff works. So yeah, so let's keep going here for you guys. This is from Vitmantas. It says, "Hey Tim, greetings from your fan from Lithuania. What's the difference between the prices of Falcon 9 new and reused? We don't really know for sure, but if I remember right, can someone back me up here? If I remember right, the NASA actually, or someone won a contract for only like 45 million." Or accepted a contract for only 45 million for, maybe it wasn't a dedicated launch, but still, someone got a ride to space for 45 million on a Falcon 9. Yeah, that's cheap. So that's what we think of as the new baseline for a potentially reused price, which would be really cheap because the other ones are about 60 million. So yeah. Sammy Baby in Discord. I'll get to your other ones. We can do those ones off camera. Sorry about ISRO and Ariane 5 and stuff like that. But the first stage after payload separation on a downrange landing, there's only about 15% of fuel left over, and that's all you need to be able to slow down, cut off half your velocity before re-entry, and then just do the landing burn. It takes about 15%-ish of your fuel. Return to launch site landings take about 30 because of that boost back burn. So. Okay. What is the record for fairing reuse? Expected number of reuses. Love from India. Thank you very much, PVK. I don't actually know what the record is. I think they've only so far reused. Have they reused a fairing more than once? Let's see. It's something you can. Let's see here. Yeah, that is something you can track on. Yeah, the fuel thing is something you can track on Flight Club. I don't remember if they've actually reused a fairing more than once yet, and I don't know if we have data yet to really infer any further on that yet. Okay, sorry if I'm wrong on that though, but for this fairing, yeah, this fairing was the first reuse of this particular fairing, but they've obviously reused fairings before. I don't remember if they've reused a fairing twice yet. So Carl, basically every launch is an instantaneous launch for the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy-ish. Sometimes they'll have a window, but really when it all comes down to it, there is only about 1 second where in the terminal count. So once they commit to fuel up, so there's about a 45-minute fueling procedure. Once they commit to that and go, so if they haven't shifted the window, well, hang on. First off, Starlink missions, yes, are instantaneous because they have to get into a very specific orbit. But all Falcon 9 missions, once they start the fuel up procedure, they're committed to like a T0 that's 1 second long, basically. So in other words, if they miss that 1 second and they have to drain, they might not have enough opportunity to be able to reset and go back because they start all the way back they would totally drain and totally recycle and refuel. Well, they not quite, but basically there's about a 1 second window. If there's 1 second instantaneous window for most launches, unless there's a larger window and there's a lot of variables there. But that's why lots of times we'll see them push further into a window if there is one, like the in-flight abort, like Falcon Heavy demo mission where they didn't start fuel up. They just kept pushing it back and back and back until they got to that point, and then they did it. So let's see. All right, we got a new membership here from Michael. Thank you very much. Let's see here. This is a good question from Samir. It says, why does ULA buy engines rather than build one itself? That's a really, really good question. It's a difference in philosophy. Building a rocket engine is not trivial. people tend to think, oh, it's just, you know, you boop, you do. Building a rocket engine is extremely expensive, and it's actually really high risk. Like a lot of people try to build a rocket engine and fail because if stuff goes wrong, you're just literally wasting money trying to fix it and trying to get it working. And having high, you know, people that are building rocket engines typically aren't getting paid $10 an hour. They're probably getting paid really high-end salaries. So if you have people on, you know, on salary, a team of 24 people working on a rocket engine for 5 years, that's a lot of money right there in just the people, right? So that's why, you know, it's pretty genius how Rocket Lab basically took the path of least resistance forward when they built the Rutherford engine. They're basically like, what's the easiest thing we can do and still be reliable and still get what we need to get done, right? And they went with the electric pump fed engine because it was really simple and it's elegantly simple and beautiful. And that's admirable. That's applaudable in the spaceflight world because it's like, oh yeah, they did it. They got done with it. Building your own engine is just it's a huge undertaking. It's really, really hard. So yeah, I don't, you know, ULA doesn't honestly build many of their things. They outsource a lot of stuff. You know, their fairings are made. All of their fairings aren't even necessarily made by them. They really are more like we'll put it all together for you and do the actual launch service than necessarily the manufacturer of everything. And that's actually a lot of cars do that. Look at how many subcontractors there are on even a car. A lot of cars utilize someone else's engine too, because again, developing and engineering the R&D to produce like an internal combustion engine is still going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars. And so why would you invest in that if you can just buy something off the shelf that fits your needs? And that's kind of the way ULA has always done things. And don't forget, they're a joint venture between Boeing and Lockheed. And so it's not necessarily in their best interest to try to, neither of those companies really wants to take on any more investment, I don't think, in that stuff. I think that's, I think that's kind of why. Let's see. Does 330 bar make this more powerful than the R25 at half the size? Let's see here. Well, let me remind me what the RS25 thrust is. It is. Oh yeah, it's actually already more powerful than the RS25. Well, it definitely would be in vacuum. Even would be more powerful. It's more powerful at sea level. Period. Because the RS25 is 1,860 kilonewtons of thrust, and in a vacuum it's 2,279 kilonewtons of thrust. And yeah, this is the Raptor at sea level just hit about 2,250. So yeah, it's like I said, a little over 500,000 pounds of thrust. It's a powerful engine. The RS-25 isn't necessarily that powerful, but it's extremely efficient. What is it, like 450 seconds of specific impulse or something? It's a really, really efficient engine, but it's not necessarily the most powerful. So yeah, good question. From Randy, do you think SpaceX has come up with more revisions for the Raptor beyond serial number 50 planned revisions that Elon previously stated? That it's SpaceX, so they're constantly revising. Like they're just literally... it took until Block 5, so, you know, what was that, the, like, 30th or something? You know, 30 or 40th Falcon 9, or, no, not quite. What was it? I don't remember. Something like the 35th or something, maybe even 40th Falcon 9, before they got to the point where they were kind of done tweaking, even though they're still doing very small iterative tweaks on the Falcon 9. They were making massive changes every single flight, like pretty substantial changes every single flight. Someone wants to know if the RL-10 is more powerful than the Merlin. Not even close. It's probably more like a tenth the power. The RL-10 is really low thrust. Really, really low thrust. If I remember right, it's only like 100 or like, yeah, it's very, very, very low thrust. And the Merlin vacuum is very overpower. 46. There we go. Thank you. 1046 was the first Block 5. So it took 46 before they kind of even slowed down or stopped developing the Falcon 9. I think the Raptor engine will be continually tweaking. That's just what they do. That's just what SpaceX does. They just keep tweaking and iterating. They don't believe in if it's not broke, don't fix it. They believe in keep pushing it until we just physically can't go any further, until it's pointless. And I feel like they just, yeah. So there we go. It's 110 kilonewtons versus, a lot, like 1,000 basically. Yep. So the RL10, although it's very low power, is extremely highly efficient. 465 seconds. That's for the RL10B2, if I remember correctly. Okay, so this is from Mediocre. I almost pronounced it Mediacore because I can't read. Instead of ending the ISS in 2025 and building a lunar gateway, why not undock the modules and rebuild the ISS in low lunar orbit with SLS and Starship? Oh, frankly, it wouldn't be worth it. The ISS is already very old. I mean, it's got old technology on it. It's a very hodgepodge space station. And it would take an unbelievable amount of rocket power to get that thing, even portions of it, up to low lunar orbit. I just don't think it's worth it. I feel like it has so much old technology, and it's just in constant maintenance and constant repair. They need something that's less. That's funny. They need something that requires less overall maintenance to be out there in low lunar orbit. Oh, and actually, Gateway won't be in low lunar orbit. Gateway will be in a near rectilinear halo orbit. And what I just said, if that terrifies you, don't worry. I'm almost done. Like, I'm literally I'm in the conclusion of my next video, which is talking about why Artemis is going to the near rectilinear halo orbit versus low lunar orbit. And why, is SLS compared to the Saturn V and basically Artemis versus Apollo? Does Starship and the other commercial landers make up for some of the costs of SLS? So it's a deeper dive yet into what we've already started on SLS for Starship Part 1. This is kind of Part 2. And I will show you exactly why they're parked in near rectilinear halo orbit, what that is, where that is. And it'll give you a sense of it would take a lot of rockets to move something as big as the ISS out there. There we go. Byman says the ISS mass is 272 tons. That would take a lot. Yeah, that would be a lot. Starman Steve. Hey, how's it going, Starman Steve? Yo, Tim, thanks for this awesome show. I hope all is well, Midwest. Thank you very much, Starman Steve. Really appreciate it. I hope you're doing well. Alex says, greetings from Iceland. Love your content. Been with you from the beginning. From the beginning, Alex? You've been here since Spacesuit days. Have you been here? Were you Instagram days even? Because a lot of people here do not realize that this all started on Instagram. This all started as me taking pictures of myself in a Russian high altitude flight suit on Instagram. And then through that, I ended up really falling in love with spaceflight and falling in love with the history and the actual engineering and all the little nuts and bolts of spaceflight, and wanted to teach other people all the cool stuff that I was learning along the way. And Instagram wasn't a good platform for that, so I started a YouTube channel. So if you've been with me, I'm curious, raise your hand if you were there for me on Instagram back in the day. If you look at my Instagram still, it's changed a lot more because now it's way more focused on the content I'm currently creating. But if you scroll back to the beginning of Instagram, on Everyday Astronauts Instagram, you'll see a lot of old ethereal and juxtaposition-y photos of me in a high altitude flight suit that I took. Yeah, it was very throwback. So, yeah. All right. Austin says, thank you very much, Austin. That's very nice. Thank you. Dean Carpenter says, let's see. Hey, Tim, what do you think limits the reuse of Falcon 9? As in, why with post-flight repair can't they be reused indefinitely? You the best. Thank you, Dean. That's a good question. I know that the attachments between the engines, they're not really attachments. They're more like a skirt. They're kind of called the armadillo. It's this skin between the engine nozzles and the floor of the Falcon 9. I know those take a beating and need refurbishment. I think the actual floor of the dance floor of the OctaWeb needs a lot of refurbishment, or needs a lot of attention at least. But I think at some point you're just, the vehicle experiences some pretty high stresses and big temperature gradients. It experiences anywhere from, minus 220 degrees or whatever, minus 207 degrees Celsius, which is or 203, something like that, around minus 200 degrees Celsius on one side of the wall. On the other side during reentry, it's, hitting thousands of degrees. So there's just, the metals go through just a lot of stresses, and I'm sure there's just a point where you can just push it too far, and you could have, micro fractures or all these little bits that might just be hard to account for. So I don't know. I don't know what exactly is their limitation on reuse, but I'd be really curious what that actually looks like on the inside. Like, what are they looking at? What is it? Yeah. What is it that they're like? Yeah. How are they gauging it too? So that's a really, really good question. And that's something that I don't have the answer to. Probably no one outside of SpaceX has the answer to, most likely, but good question. Let's see here. So Velociraptor, you can find it on my website. I try not to just have it out there because, we get too many emails a day. It's become like a full-time job just to answer emails, literally. Like, it'll be hours of my day answering emails. But you can find it on the website. But as far as aerospace engineering, if you were thinking about majoring in it, I'm personally sorry. I have no experience with academia and any like collegiate majors. I would have nothing to say for you than to please do it. Like, just go do it. I mean, what questions are there? Do I want to change the world and help humans get deeper into space and actually colonize and live on other worlds? If the answer is yes, then get into aerospace engineering. If the answer is no, do something else. I don't know. Go kick some butt, though. We really, really, really need talented workforce to really push humanity further. And, there are so many aerospace jobs opening up right now. Aerospace is hot right now, and I think it's just going to get hotter and hotter. I can't tell you how many people are being hired at Blue Origin or like Relativity or Rocket Lab or ULA and, all these companies, Boeing, Firefly. I mean, all of them. There's so many rocket companies and aerospace companies right now to work for that I just see it going up too. I can't imagine a world where we're getting momentum like this and the cost is coming down and the performance is going up. Where all of a sudden we're going to be like, yeah, we don't need it anymore. We're all done. So I would say, as far as questions about aerospace engineering, which I know nothing about, just go do it. That's my opinion. You heard the most of my opinion that I have to offer at this point. Joe Rodriguez says, it's Bear character dancing under a rain of confetti and taking his hat off to say you are amazing. Thank you very much, Joe. I love when it's spelled out like that. We have a membership from Heather. Thank you very much, Heather Nichols. That means a lot. Austin says, what is the difference between previous SpaceX CRS missions and upcoming CRS missions? Well, they're very similar. And the upcoming ones will now be using Dragon 2. That's one of the big changes. So this is technically the third round of CRS missions. SpaceX and Northrop got a renewed contract to get up to 20 basically for SpaceX, and I don't remember if it was 13 or whatever it was for Northrop Grumman. But this is now, but it's a totally new phase of ISS contracts. And now, as far as SpaceX, the big difference is they will be using Dragon 2 now, a cargo variant of Dragon 2. And but as far as the other players, Northrop Grumman will still be doing their Cygnus capsule, but Sierra Nevada will also be launching their Dream Chaser, which I'm really, really excited for. So, yeah. All right. Hetty says, how long do you think it'll be until we see the first super heavy booster tests? Really hard to say. That predicting anything Starship predicting is like the hardest. If you were like to be a bookie in Vegas or something and try to make people bet on when events of Starship would happen, the house will win 100 times because no one will be right ever. Because pinning down dates on things, the pace is insane, but it also, because of that pace, you can have big setbacks and boop, and then racing again. At this point, seeing that they're now at serial number 40 and cranking them out about every 2 weeks or so, oh man, I would see. Oh man, what do I think? Because the big thing is they have to have enough engines. They're not going to launch at first with 31 Raptors. They don't need the way that it works is like really the more fuel you can put in a vehicle, right? The more that vehicle can do, the more work it can do. But obviously you can put too much fuel in it and not be able to lift it with the amount of engines or the amount of thrust that the engines are making, right? But because of that, you can kind of go the opposite. You can go, okay, we really only have about 20 engines that we can risk blowing up in a massive booster. 20 engines is a lot. 20 Raptor engines is a lot. And it's going to take still a good 20 or so for the first orbital test. And I think what will happen with the Super Heavy boosters, they'll do some small static fires. It won't fly alone. I don't think there's any point in flying it alone. I think the first time it'll fly will be with a Starship on top of it. And so that being said, we also have to have the Starship ready to be orbital. It has to be ready with heat shields and the flappy things and all that stuff figured out. So we'll have to have done at least a 20-kilometer hop and maybe some even higher velocity. There's a lot of, oh man. Well, I mean, Borg Gorilla says you just need one Raptor to start Super Heavy testing. In a sense, yes, you can do that with just one Raptor. But really, the Super Heavy is going to be the same thing right now. What we see Starship, the serial number 5, serial number 6, where it's just rings on rings. That's still what Super Heavy is going to be. It's just going to be rings stacked like that. So the fuselage part is super trivial. The thrust puck and the actual, like, where you mount all the engines to the bottom of Super Heavy, that's not trivial engineering. That'll take a while. The legs will take a while. I mean, if we see a Super Heavy static fire in 2021, I'll be surprised. That's my personal thought. I would love to be corrected by that. I will actually be genuinely surprised if we see a Super Heavy static fire in 2021. Part of that sounds so pessimistic, but another part of it is like, it hasn't even been touched yet. And like physically, building wise, and look at, as opposed to like SLS has been literally out at its test stand and still has not fired once, and it's August. So 8 months. So part of me is like, obviously I think it'll go faster than SLS test program, but at the same time, I'm trying to just be realistic, because notice that it took almost a full year to go from Star Hopper to another hop of anything. And we thought that was going to take, Elon said at that press conference in September last year, he said that he thought that was going to happen next month. So from 1 month to about 11 and a half months. So about an 11-to-1 guess ratio on that. I think that was just because they were pushing the boundaries definitely of what they had. A lot of new testing, a lot of new procedures to go on. That's why we lost so many of the serial numbers. Rest in peace, Mark 1, serial number 1, serial number 3, serial number 4. Yeah, I mean, a lot of big booms, a lot of failures. But like I said, honestly, I would just be surprised if we see a Super Heavy light up multiple engines in 2021. Yeah, but again, would love to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Mediocre Engineering says, why not put a launch abort system of some kind on a Falcon 9 cargo? The ability to save and recover payloads would provide some assurance to customers. Now with Dragon 2, they had talked about it for a little bit, actually, I think, because Dragon 2 obviously has abort capability, but they'd still talked about stripping it out. But I heard once at something that they were going to keep an abort system active for cargo, but there is a lot of extra, like, there's repercussions of having, the abort motors armed and all that stuff too. So it's not trivial, but then again, now that they've got that all solved for human spaceflight, it should be a lot easier to consider for cargo. But I don't know. Hey, maybe we should, I'll do a poll on Twitter about Super Heavy. When do you think we'll see Super Heavy first light up? I'll do that on Twitter. So if you're not following me on Twitter, get there. Obviously, you'll have to search it. Probably search Everyday Astronaut. The actual handle is Erday Astronaut, ERDAY Astronaut, because Everyday doesn't fit. So I'm just Erday Astronaut. Don't ask. But yeah, I'll do a poll on Twitter. I might do one on YouTube too. That'd be fun. But yeah, we'll see. We will see. But yeah, about Dragon abort, I'm not sure, honestly. We'll see, I guess, if that is something they end up doing. Mike wants to know, why is SpaceX blacked out their logo on the drone ship? It's not blacked out, my friend. It's just getting blasted every time a rocket lands on it. And why repaint it every single launch? You know, every landing, they'd have to repaint it. And I'm sure that's just more refurbishment time, more money that's really not necessary. So they don't black it out. It's just that it goes bye-bye every single time. Hey, why did that go up twice? Sorry about that. Let's see here. This is from Tom Hatter 95 says, "Hi Tim, love the content and insights you provide. With this booster being used for the 6th time, is there a life expectancy for each booster?" Yes. So again, we think, you know, the goal for the Block 5 is to fly 10 times. That is the life expectancy. We obviously 6 is getting some good progress on that. But 10 is just a goal. They might not quite. They might get to 8 and be like, you know, this particular booster has a little, you know, thing popping up. We're not very happy with that. It's having, you know, it seems like this bracket's getting loose inside the COPV holder, or this valve is blah blah blah, or the fuselage just seems like it's taking a beating, so we're not going to fly it again. They might get to 10 and be like, this, we'll just keep flying this. So you know, no one really knows until we know. But 10 is what they're engineered to do. So yeah. This is from Luke, visiting family in Cedar Falls. I told them about you. They had seen your videos and said they even remember the Dodds from Nazareth. Small world. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Growing up in Cedar Falls, baby. That's crazy. It is a small, small world. Yep. That's awesome. Thanks, Luke. Tell your family hi. This is, do you know what happened to Jessie? Jessie, guys, we don't need to speculate. They rotate hosts all the time. Everyone's making a big deal. I don't even want to comment on it because I feel like that's just further spreading rumors that people think because Jessie posted pictures of Starlink that she got like fired or something. She clearly still works at SpaceX. Just look at her Instagram. But yeah, here we go.
Asked for our 11th Starlink mission.
They caught a fairing.
We had an on-time liftoff at 10:31 a.m. Eastern Time from Cape Canaveral, Florida, for a 6th mission for this particular first stage. We landed it successfully on our drone ship. And there, as you can see on your screen, we successfully caught one of the fairing halves. That is a recovery vessel, Ms. Tree, caught that out of the air. The second fairing half made a soft water landing, so Ms. Chief is en route to scoop it out of the ocean. And before we went for a break, we saw the successful deployment of the 3 Skysat satellites for our customer Planet, which we're ride-sharing along with Starlink. These 3 Skysats will be joining the 18 already on orbit and will complete Planet's fleet of 21 satellites and make it the largest high-resolution fleet of satellites in orbit to date. So here in just a couple of seconds, we will be deploying our 58 Starlink satellites, which will be joining the nearly 600 that are on orbit. Now, there is a chance, and it looks like I was just going to say that
Starlink tension rod separation confirmed.
we have an expected loss of signal over our ground station. There we go. We can see the visual confirmation of Starlink deployment.
Really, we think they don't like showing how they deploy these satellites because it is a very interesting and unique system. We have seen it once. Oh, you can see the sunshades flapping there.
600 that are already on orbit. And shortly, they will be deploying their solar arrays. Over the next few days and weeks, they will distance themselves out using the momentum created by the second stage.
Maneuver complete.
Like I said, we spun it along its central axis to provide the momentum required for those satellites to space out, as you can see there. So they'll be using their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit of 550 kilometers above Earth, and we'll begin to start beaming down high-speed internet to us Earthlings.
Wow. That's a great shot.
And with that wonderful view of those Starlink satellites floating out into space, we will now bring our webcast to a close this morning. We'd like to thank our customer Planet for their continued support riding on board Falcon 9, as well as the FAA and the 45th Space Wing for supporting today's mission. If you're interested in getting future updates about Starlink launches, as well as general updates about future service availability, head over to starlink.com, sign up for updates, and we will see you next launch. Until then, have a good one.
Yay. Congratulations, SpaceX. You guys are obviously making that look super easy. Just fun to see it going so well. Some comments there at the end. You could see those sunshades flapping, which, first off, if you're wondering why they flap in the vacuum of space, don't forget things that are in motion will stay in motion. And because there's no air friction, they'll actually continue to flap like that as long as there's, if there is something, the only thing that will slow it down is the friction in the hinge would be what eventually slows, if something was rocking like this, it would continue to do so. Why exactly it's processing and gyrating like that, it could have been something with the energy from the satellites. Now they're deployed, they kind of bump into each other, and that could get something just kind of rocking like this, and it just keep doing that until eventually this small amount of friction in the hinge would prevent that from happening, which might take a long time. I don't know how they deploy those then in general, if they're just willy-nilly loose like that. I'm very curious how those sunshades work now. I've never seen that before. Someone asked if I have a video on ion thrusters. No, I need to do a video on ion thrusters for sure, because I don't know very much. But yeah, we obviously saw one half of the fairing get caught. So that's the nose cone on top of the rocket, like that guy splits in half. They both fall. They fall when they're way up there. They're over. They're like 160 kilometers, 200 kilometers in altitude when they're falling out of the sky. And they're still going really fast, but they open up like this, and they're just kind of like two boats, basically. There's some small gas thrusters inside them to keep them oriented, so the curvy end goes down like this, and then they stay oriented through re-entry. But because they're lightweight, big surface area, they don't need to propulsively slow down. They can just kind of slowly fall through the atmosphere with great ease, compared to the booster, which is much more dense. Aerodynamically, like it's just a pencil basically piercing through the atmosphere. So it needs to slow itself down so it doesn't hit the lower atmosphere at really high speeds. These things being so lightweight and big surface area, they can just kind of, they can hit in the upper atmosphere, just start slowing down a lot more. And then they just pop a parachute at the end, or parafoil, a steerable parachute. And they kind of steer themselves and try to line up with a boat, and the boat tries to catch them out of the air. This time they only had one get caught out of two, but the other one got swooped out of the water, so that's still great news. It's kind of like it's like a bonus. If they're out there to try to recover them out of the water anyway, they've obviously proven that's okay. But while the boats are out there, if they can just save the step of having to get them out of the water by driving up underneath it and catching it out of the sky without it ever touching water, that's just a total bonus. So, yeah, that's definitely congrats on that too. So successful six flight of a Falcon 9. One half fairing got caught, the other's being recovered. That's great news. And looks like the payload deployment, which is obviously what the whole thing is all about, was successful too. So pretty awesome, pretty great mission. We've got a lot of questions to try to answer for you guys too. So stick around here because we're not done yet. We are not done yet. But remember, though, one more time, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Today, because we were talking about the full flow stage combustion cycle engine and the fact that they hit 330 bar in celebration of that new milestone of the Raptor engine, we have the full flow stage combustion cycle shirt for sale for you guys today. 10% off by using coupon code LAUNCHDAY, all one word, lowercase at checkout. And you can get your own full flow stage combustion cycle t-shirt. Which, of course, don't forget our shirts are hand sewn. They have cool extra bonus little patches and stuff, and they're hand printed and everything here in the United States. So you can get your own shirt that Elon likes to wear by going to shop.everydayastronaut.com. That's /shop.everydayastronaut.com. And get your own, and also get the new hoodie. The new hoodie is out, but we're almost out. We're restocking these tomorrow. So if you guys, we're almost out of some of the sizes already in the hoodies, so we're doing a new run of these. But they will be back in stock, I think by tomorrow, but for sure by the end of the week. But yeah, there you go. Shop.everydayastronaut.com. We got all your nerdy space needs. We've got them all. We've got all the nerdy space needs. All right, so let's see here. Stefan says, another awesome stream, Tim. What do you think we'll get to the moon first? A Falcon 9 a Falcon 9 or Tesla stock? Tesla stock. Jeez, that has just been absolutely bonkers. I think this morning when I woke up, I looked, it was over 1,900. That's insane. That's like twice the valuation of Ford. Wow. Yeah. That's absolutely nutty. Space Viking, yes, we've had discussions. We're working on running some of that stuff. Let's see here. What's up with the gray circle they painted on ASDS? I don't know about the gray circle, but again, the deck gets knackered every time. So, yeah, I don't know if they painted a circle. I must have missed that. If they did, it's probably just a worn out circle more than anything. Jane, thank you for your membership. Charlie, holy cow here. Wow, Charlie, thank you so much. This is very generous. I really appreciate having a dog jumping in the air with fireworks. Everyone say thank you to Charlie. That is really, really generous. Dang, thank you. Thank you, Charlie. That's too much, but thank you. This is from Tony. To infinity and beyond. I love these launches. It's like watching a movie every time. Great job on the commentary. Thank you so much. I like watching these launches too. I still get excited like the night before launch, even though we were asking in Discord, we're trying to figure out, in Discord, how many live launches have I covered now? And I'm sure we're getting close to, it's got to be over 100. It's definitely, if there's scrubs involved, like if I turned on a stream to do a launch, if that counts as having covered a launch, even whether or not it launched or not, I'm sure I'm well over 100. But I'll bet you even so successful flights, I'm probably gotta be over 50, gotta be like 60 or 70, maybe. I have no idea. There's been a lot. Thank you. And I still love it. I still just love learning and learning more. So, hiding in the bathroom at work with the volume off so I can watch the launch. Go SpaceX. If it were me, we'd all get a 15-minute break every time someone launches so we could watch it. I agree, David. Don't get in trouble. I hope you were able to catch it. That is hilarious. Let's see. Don't forget, guys, James, we got you covered here on the pre-launch preview. So everydayastronaut.com/pre-launch preview. And you can see how far downrange this drone ship is. Are they attempting to recover? Right here, where will the first stage land? We will show you exactly where the first stage will land, or at least the distance. Yep. So don't forget that. We've got you covered. All right. Let's see. From Happy Hacking Video Blog again, please consider placing simulated telemetry on the bottom right corner where there's free space not covering the second stage. It would also be symmetric. Not a bad idea. We can absolutely do that. I will do that next time. Thanks for the idea, and thanks for saying hi again. I really appreciate it. Let's see here. From Mark Duffy, whenever we don't hear whoops from Hawthorne during booster recovery, they'll be landing a booster every day. Yeah. This seriously, it's hilarious how landing a booster now maybe gets like a Hawthorne, because they're just like, yeah, that's what we designed it to do. It's not a big deal. But I feel like we should watch the first booster landing real quick, just so you remember what kind of a big deal it was when they very first launched and landed. There's Orbcom 2 recap. I just want to show you guys, for those of you that, some of you might not have been around this whole time. This was a really big deal for me to watch this live. But when they first landed a booster, this was December 21st, 2015. Before this point, it was considered impossible. And everyone was laughing at him still. Yeah, that's still the coolest thing. I still get goosebumps watching that. Isn't it? Does anyone else? I got a question. Does anyone else get like a little bit of oh, I still love that shot too. Does anyone else get like, when you see people hugging and cheering in a group, you kind of are like, you have this like anxious tension of like, you shouldn't do that. Coronavirus. Like I'm so trained already that it's like, yeah, you can't do that. You guys can't hug and be screaming and with the germs, It's like, oh yeah, that was before there was a pandemic. Life. I can't wait to get back to that point. Oh man. Yeah. But I do definitely think that was the one of the coolest things that I've seen. But nowadays it's just hilarious how it's like, oh yeah, Yeah, the booster landed. Cool. It's done that 6 times now. What else is new? You know, like it's that particular booster has done that 6 times now. Us as a company, yeah, we've done that like, what is it? 50? What we just talked about it earlier. They have landed. Let's see. We don't even have the booster landing because we're just talking about how many times they've reflown. I think they're above 60, but this is the 40th reflight of a booster. I think they've landed 60 or so. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. everything normal. Yeah. little echo on today's webcast, not a big deal. Just giving you guys double information. Okay, so compare the 20-kilometer video here to see the idea of Starship 20-kilometer hop. That's true. We can kind of get a sense. Let's see if we can just go back to what 20 kilometers looks like in altitude. Because this will be what it'll look like when Starship, obviously Starship won't be moving away at this velocity. When Starship does this 20-kilometer hop, it's going to pause, that'll be the peak and it'll stop there basically and fall back from that point. It's not like it's going to be accelerating through 20 kilometers like Falcon 9 does, but still give us a sense of scale. Oh, I can't replay right now. Well, I tried replaying. But there was a really good animation on Twitter that Elon... Hold on. I'm getting my... Since the other thing had stopped, it auto-played my thing. Come on, YouTube. All right, let me see here. I got to find that Twitter thing. Yeah, check this out. I'm going to play this. This is from Corey. Hang on. This is from Corey C_Bass3D. This was a 3D animation that Corey's been working on. And Elon commented saying it's pretty darn accurate. But this gives you a good sense of how big. Look at that. The community is getting so good at these 3D renders. The 3D renders between all the creators is just absolutely incredible. I do love that it's always like, he'll just put like a plot of ground there. And it's just floating in space. So look at that. That kind of gives you a sense of scale. Just this tiny little dot. It will actually be kind of hard to see at some point. This is really an outstanding simulation. Gosh, I'm sorry, but that's still going to be the scariest thing ever. When it starts belly flopping back to Earth, I'm going to crap my pants. And I better be there. I better be able to be there in person. If I'm not there in person to see this, I'll be so sad. And then Elon mentioned that he basically said like the Raptor firing will be doing the primary amount of rotation. They won't be using those gas thrusters as much like that. That they'll use the Raptors. And we've seen that in the SpaceX animations, but he kind of confirmed that, yeah, we'll probably just use that more. That will be the wildest thing ever. Yeah. So definitely throw Corey some love. But yeah, Elon basically said Starship will be a tiny dot at 20 kilometers. Hard to see with the naked eye. Let's see if Elon's been saying anything while we're gone, because sometimes he gets on Twitter during launches. Oh yeah, this is awesome. Where is Roadster? You got a shout out here. I love it when Elon does that. That's super cool. All right, let's get back to a few more guys' questions. I got a number 1 fan here from Roger. Thank you very much, Roger. That's awesome. I appreciate that. So Rick Bobbitt wants to know what happens to stage 2. They deorbit stage 2, so it doesn't. For these low Earth orbit missions, they deorbit it so it doesn't create, orbital debris. And they'll do that somewhere, and they even have an exclusion zone of where that will re-enter so that boats and airplanes can't be, in the path of the re-entering second stage in case any debris would rain down and could potentially hurt somebody. So, yeah, they deorbit the second stage. On certain missions like geostationary transfer orbits, what they'll do is they'll actually just kick the second stage out into a graveyard orbit so it doesn't interfere with anything space-related. But yeah, they tend to clear up. That's kind of the common consensus is you definitely clear up this space. So from Royal Clark, you have Elon's ear somewhat. May I ask, maybe ask him to show video feed of the device that secures the return first stage to the deck of the recovery ship. Yeah, we've asked for it. We've definitely asked to see the Octograbber in action. And I'll bug him. I'm supposed to be doing a tour at Boca Chica here before the end of the year with Elon and video of that. So maybe it'll be a good time, depending on how much time we get there. Might be a good time to ask some of those questions, like, can we see Octograbber? Because I definitely want to see that for sure. Let's see here. This is from Borgia. Do you know when is Starlink expected to be fully operational? So I think we're already at the point now where it provides global coverage and you can basically have it at certain latitudes, pretty high latitudes, like over 50 degrees. You can pretty much it can be operational there, but to be fully operational globally, it'll be well over 1,000 satellites. So, but that could be still by the end of the year, it could probably be mostly operational, but likely won't be like customer ready until like the end of next year would be when it's more fully operational. So to that degree where it's actually something that customers would be able to utilize like that anywhere. Lao Fitness knowledge. Knowledge. Yeah. I don't know. Wesley says that windstorm in Iowa is pronounced duratio. Yeah, I don't know. I read it like once and was like, I've never seen or heard of that in my life. How is that like a thing that everyone knows about? And I had I've heard of microbursts, like we've had microbursts, but a duratio. Yeah, I had no idea when I said it. Earlier I couldn't even remember what it was called, so I said it something. I said duratio or something. Yeah, duratio. Who knew? KH says, Tim, would it not be advantageous for weight and engineering for the Crew Dragon capsule to just have one hatch instead of two? I've actually thought about that too. Yeah, I don't know why either, frankly. I don't get why it can't just dock, like have the side hatch be the circular IDA style, international docking adapter style hatch. I have wondered that too. I'm sure it's something to do with like aerodynamics and vehicle dynamics. Once it's on orbit, controlling it sideways might not translate to, I don't know. I'm sure there's reasons. I'm sure they've thought about it. I'm sure there's exact engineering principles of like, it just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, that's a fair question. All right, Josh B, do they remove and refurbish the modems between flight? We talked about that a little earlier. Sorry if we missed it, but we don't really know how many they can, and I think sometimes they do, but I don't know if they need to. I think they try to do a lot of inspections these days with like a borescope, like literally checking out the engines from while they're still attached. I don't think they have to take them all off each flight. We've seen boosters that are sitting out with the engine still attached for a long time. So I don't really know for sure when they need to pull them off, when they need to replace them, when they need to refurbish them. That's all pretty internal stuff, unfortunately. Andrew says, next Our Ludicrous Future. That's the podcast I do each week. Again, if you guys aren't watching and listening, olfpod.com. Next OLF, you should have Joe and Ben check out and discuss Linear Labs. New electric motor design, smaller with 2 times torque and efficiency. Did we just talk about them? I think we did like 3 months ago. Because that sounds really familiar. Let me look this up. Linear Labs. I'm pretty sure we talked about this. Maybe, maybe not. I'll ask them if they remember, but I think we have talked about that, but if not, that's a good idea. Space time. We need a video on electric propulsion. Yes, we do. Also, what do you think about the future of rocket propulsion? Thank you so much for the video, by the way. Well, first off, thank you very much. As far as future of rocket propulsion, I think it's just, there's only so much you can do with chemical bonds. We know that. These are theoretical and proven hard numbers that you can. It's not like they can. oh, we're magically going to make more energy out of the energy that exists. You can't do that. So chemical propulsion definitely has a limit. Electric propulsion is making good headway, but it's only usable in space. It has a very low thrust to weight ratio. But I think, I think the future would definitely be nuclear if we could start properly doing nuclear thermal, not RTG, like NERVA, like where it's actually a thermal, what's that called? Oh man, I'm forgetting. Thermal, where it basically just heats up hydrogen and just expels it out the back. It's super efficient. You don't need an oxidizer. You can get like over 1,000 seconds to specific impulse. Nuclear thermal engine. But it's definitely very, very cool. I should probably get rid of the clock since we're not even talking about it anymore. But yeah, I definitely think we're actually getting to a point now, like full flow stage combustion cycle is the peak of chemical rockets. We aren't going to see a chemical rocket exceed this, right? The Raptor engine is pretty darn close to the peak of chemical rockets. I would love to see if SpaceX could get a grant or something or get permission from the US government to do nuclear thermal propulsion, because that would make a big difference for Mars. If Starship could have 3 nuclear engines instead of vacuum optimized Raptor engines or something, yeah, that could make a huge difference. But yeah, that'd be pretty great. But electric, it just doesn't scale up very well just because it's so heavy for a human flight at least, and it just is such low thrust to weight ratio. Like for instance, if you were to use electric propulsion to go from a parking orbit of say 200 kilometers by 200 kilometers, and you're trying to get up to 500 kilometers by 500 kilometers using nuclear or electric propulsion like ion engines, that will take months. That will take literal months. You don't have months with people to be able to go such a small amount of distance. So nuclear thermal is a lot closer to the amount of thrust necessary while still maintaining very, very, very high specific impulse as well. So the efficiency of the engine. Thank you, Essex. Really appreciate that for the new membership. Richard Gadsden wants to know, in terms of thrust, the Raptor is about 1/3 the power of Rocketdyne's F1. 15 to match the S1C first stage. 31 Super Heavy is about twice as powerful. Yes, exactly. The Super Heavy booster is going to be massive. And don't forget the Saturn V, one of the reasons that it's so tall and so big isn't necessarily because it was so tall and so big. It's because the second and third stage were hydrogen. So hydrogen tanks are huge. If the Saturn V were to have like the relative amount of, say oxygen versus RP1, the Saturn V would be like 2/3 the size if it was an RP1 powered vehicle. Obviously, it wouldn't get as much specific impulse. It wouldn't get as much total delta V if they used RP1. But one of the reasons that's the same reason why like the Delta IV, why it looks so big, is because the hydrogen tanks are huge. Hydrogen tanks are way bigger. Let me show this. Hang on. I'll pull this up because I think we talked about this already recently, but it's still fun to talk about. The densities of fuel. So basically, compared to RP1, so the first stage, of course, of the Saturn V used RP1. So that is about 5 times, RP1 is about 5 times more dense per liter compared to, or 5 times more dense, period, than liquid hydrogen is. So if they were to use the same relative amount of liquid oxygen, and so those second and third stages would be, remove the LOX would stay the same, and then we're equating whatever. They'd be like half the size or whatever. It'd be substantially smaller on the second and third stage if they were to use RP1, which is why I look at this. So the Falcon 9, here is the amount of liquid oxygen, and here is the amount of LOX, liquid oxygen, and here's the amount of RP1 in the red. And the Delta IV is the opposite. Look at the tiny, weighs a lot more. It has a lot more potential energy than even the yeah. Oh, did we lose it again? What is with YouTube lately? That is so weird. Yeah, I haven't dropped a frame here at all. We are not dropping frames. That is YouTube again. But this sucks. Isn't it? Okay, good. No, it didn't. So the Saturn V, although huge and awesome and amazing, the amount of energy inside of a Starship Super Heavy is like next level. Absolutely next level. All right. Thank you so much to Mohammed for the pair. Hey you while lowering glasses. I don't know if I actually know what that one looks like. I have to try to find that one. That's really funny. I don't know if I've seen that one. Oh, I see it now. That is great. Thank you very much for that pair. So from channel, just discovered your channel. That's a lot of channels I'm saying. Channel, just discovered my channel. Love it. What do you think of the criticism of Starship not adequately protecting astronauts from radiation? Well, okay. This is something I don't necessarily know yet. I don't know how we can say it's not adequately protecting astronauts because we don't know what the final design is going to be like. We don't know what the interior is like. We don't know anything about radiation protection. But one of the best protection of radiation is to literally have like water in between you and your source of radiation. So the sun is our biggest source of radiation when you're in deep space, when you're going to Mars. It's the sun. So you can put water in between you and the sun, and you'll substantially lower the amount of radiation. And fuel. You can use the liquid methane, liquid oxygen to put in between you and the sun, and it will substantially lower the radiation received by astronauts. But of course, if we're ever to do like artificial gravity or anything by tethering starships or anything like that, then there's going to have to be some other considerations for radiation. But the good thing is, even if you are unshielded, basically, just transiting for 7 months to Mars, that dosage of radiation, it's not like it's not NASA certified for what they consider safe, but it's still not worse than someone smoking cigarettes. Like regularly. If you're a heavy cigarette smoker, your potential for getting cancer is about the same as a full radiation dosage on the way to Mars and living on Mars for a full like return trip. So it's not like we're not talking about like just getting fried. We're not like, oh yeah, these people will get cancer in 10 minutes. It's not like it's that bad. People I think have a misconception of how much radiation dosage the astronauts would actually be receiving. Ooh, not great. Just Nate, we might need to be talking in Discord here, because that's something I need to know more about. Absolutely. But yeah, from what I understand is that, I think the general public blows it out of proportion, in some senses, but there's definitely things you can do to mitigate radiation exposure. So, yeah, that's awesome. All right, so Freddie says, will they be using a reuse booster for Crew 1? Not for Crew 1, not for the first operational flight of Falcon 9 and the Crew Dragon capsule for NASA. But Crew 2 will be using a reflown booster already. And that's new. Like, that was like, we didn't think that was ever going to happen, and it's already happening on the second operational flight. And reusing the Endeavour spacecraft that Bob and Doug just brought home. So, yeah. Absolutely. This is from Candlelight. Another great stream. Feels good to be a young adult living through the equivalent of the space race. Grew up idolizing the good old days. I know, right? This is finally our version of the space race. Like, we're finally getting to be excited about spaceflight together. And I think that's super, super, super awesome. Yeah. So I agree. We are living in a new golden era of spaceflight. Thank you so much for the pair character, Henrik. I appreciate that. This is from Trev Lenhart. I know SLS is a whole new rocket, but it is still using legacy tech. Why is development taking so long to make an aluminum tank with RS-25s? I don't forget, I've got that video for you. I already have the entire, why does SLS still exist? And we talk about it. And yeah, there's some huge frustrations for me, because it does seem like it's literally just put an aluminum tank and throw some engines on it, There's some reasons. Some are political, some are frustrating, some are just the nature of cost plus contracting. Yeah, so definitely watch that video, SLS versus Starship. Why does SLS still exist? Part 2 is coming out. That will be shot this week. That is being shot this week, 100%. By the way, Discord, I might be doing the read-through already today for Commanders. So Commanders, I should probably even say that now. I'm going to do that right now. Everyone, I'll be doing a read-through today. Fingers crossed. Which then means, since I'll be doing the read-through with Commanders, that does mean that we will be posting the script today, hopefully later today or tomorrow if there needs to be major revisions, for the rest of Discord and for the rest of the patrons there. So Patreon, if you're a Discord member, get ready. We'll have that script out for part 2 of SLS versus it's kind of SLS versus Starship, but now it's really, this second one is almost like SLS and Artemis versus Apollo and Saturn V. And like, is this way we're going back to the moon actually an improvement over the Saturn V? And if so, in which ways? Ooh, I didn't even... I forgot that we haven't even got, so in other words, I still have to write. But I did want to do a little section on safety. Like, what are the new safety considerations that weren't there during the Apollo program that now NASA and the providers are contending with? So I'll have to write up that section, and then I am in the middle of like finishing. I'm in the middle of wrapping the script. I'm in the conclusion. So yeah. Let's see here. This is from Saquist. Starship does need an abort system. I think we can design a super heavy capsule to transfer passengers to Starship in orbit to avoid Starship during refueling. But hang on. Starship does need an abort system. I think we can design a super heavy capsule to transfer passengers to Starship in a... So you can't design a super heavy capsule to transfer passengers because super heavy couldn't really, you don't want to put a super heavy into orbit, right? Maybe a super heavy without Starship on top could get into orbit, but congratulations, you just threw away a $20 million booster, $50 million booster, and 31 Raptor engines, because now you don't have any fuel margins to land. You don't have, there's no heat shielding on it to survive reentry. You don't have the big flaps. You start adding all those things to a super heavy booster for your single stage to orbit, and you now have a single stage to orbit only. Like you especially if you add all the things that are required to reenter, you now have no margin. You're not going to be you're not even going to get to orbit because you strapped on, thousands, or hundreds of tons or whatever of heat shielding and aero hardware to be able to survive reentry. Now you don't have any capacity to get to orbit. The reason they're doing Starship the way they're doing it is because the first stage needs to kick the second stage up. And the first stage is basically going to be taking as much punishment as it can take already without additional, heavy recovery hardware. If you go any further with Starship or with a super heavy booster, now you have to do more work to slow it down to be able to survive, right? So the more work the first stage does, the harder it is to return. So it's this like it's almost like in order to go twice as far, right? Say you want to inject twice as much velocity, it actually takes like 4 times more energy almost, because you have to now slow down that super heavy booster back down to a reasonable speed. So doubling the velocity, and say the super heavy booster does a quarter of the work currently. So if you want the super heavy booster now to do half the work, you almost have to have 4 times the energy. Almost. I mean, it's not quite that. It doesn't scale up quite like that. But, just like how the Falcon 9 booster has to do a reentry burn to slow down to be able to survive the atmosphere, if they were to do the same thing with, say, if you're to try to go twice as far, so say the Falcon Heavy booster, right? The Falcon Heavy center core booster, because it's going faster, and it's only going about a quarter faster than the side boosters, or than like or Declan probably knows. I think it's only about a quarter faster than a regular like Falcon 9 expended, like just like the Starlink missions. Just to do that, look at how much more punishing it gets. So it has to do a bigger reentry burn. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. So you definitely can't just stick and do a orbital super heavy booster only and a capsule on top of that, and then try to reuse a super heavy. You're going to be throwing away super heavy boosters to do that. And now you have a capsule that needs heavy refurbishment and stuff too. I think the better version would be still a Starship and super heavy stack, and then having an abort system on top of that, having the crew module be able to detach from the top of the rocket. Of course, you're introducing new systems, new fuels, and you can't abort off Mars. So eventually you have to rely on the system enough to be able to just fully trust it'll work, period. And that'll just take confidence. That'll take time. But I think for the first 5-10 years of flying, I think it should have an abort system if there's people taking off from Earth on super heavy. That's my personal opinion. But yeah. I just realized I was in the wrong chat there. Yeah. All right. So that's awesome, Jared. Got a promotion. Here's a donation. KSP stream next. Not today, because I really want to finish up the video that I was just talking about, the SLS versus kind of the Apollo or Artemis versus the Apollo program, SLS versus Starship and all that stuff. I really want to get that done today. That is like very high in my priority list. So, but thank you very much for the donation. I really appreciate that. So Cigar, how's it going again? We kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the fairings survive the atmosphere because they're a huge surface area and they're very lightweight. They're extremely lightweight. So they're basically like a feather, right? They can hit the atmosphere earlier, survive reentry because the atmosphere will start slowing it down in the upper atmosphere sooner. So by the time it's in the lower atmosphere, they're slowed down even more. Just like, if you drop a pencil through, right here versus a feather, the feather's just going to slowly fall. The pencil will go, pew, and it's the same thing. So the dense, aerodynamically, pointy, basically Falcon 9 booster going through the atmosphere has to do an entry burn because of its shape and its density. It's extremely aerodynamic and it's extremely dense. It's a lot heavier than those fairings, and there's very low surface area compared to those fairings. So the fairings are the opposite. The fairings are huge surface area, very lightweight. They don't have any issue. They don't go fast enough or compress enough air to really heat up too much. So yeah, good question though. And by the way, I do have a video, you guys, if you haven't watched, it's still not a very well watched one, but talking about how and why Rocket Lab's little Electron rocket here, boop, that one, why they're hoping to be able to recover the first stage without an entry burn and with a parachute and then swooping it with a helicopter, why SpaceX doesn't do that, and then why SpaceX doesn't try to recover the fairings with the parachute with a helicopter too. I've got all that video, check it out. It's what is it called actually? Let me see here. Hang on, I'm going to do a little search. Just look up Everyday Astronaut Electron. Just Everyday Astronaut Electron. You'll see it. And it's how Rocket Lab will catch a rocket with a helicopter. Give that a watch. It'll teach you why the fairings and all that stuff. We go into the densities and all of that. So that's a good video. It talks a lot about the recovery and the velocity differences and stuff like that too. So, this is from Josh, wants to know, will I be in Boca anytime soon? I hope so. I really hope so. I hope I'm out in Boca Chica before the end of the year. At this point, I'm kind of just at the mercy of the pandemic. I really am trying to not travel a lot right now, and trying to stay I'm feeling better about, I think I could road trip down there and stay isolated. I think I might try to get, I don't know, I might just car camp or something like that. But like I said, I want to see the 20-kilometer hop more than anything, and I'm supposed to be doing an interview / tour of Boca Chica with Elon, hopefully before the end of the year. So we will see. Can you see Starlink satellites from the ISS? I think you can. I think you would be able to see that. But I don't know. I don't. Have we seen? Actually, I think an astronaut took pictures. Starlink from the ISS. I swear, I actually did see pictures of that. Now that I think about it. Yeah. Hang on here. Here we go. Yes, you can. These are photographs from the International Space Station. Long exposures. You can see Starlink satellites there from the ISS. Now, again, these conditions have to be right in order to see that. But, yeah, you can see them. Pretty crazy. Yeah. All right, so let's see here. From Nimanja says, love your videos. Thank you so much. Scott says, do you believe the improved stability of the drone ship feed is a result of SpaceX utilizing the existing Starlink satellites? Great job on everything you do. Thank you. I don't think so, because they'd have the same. If they're beaming it up, no matter what, you're still going to be going through the plasma and the disturbances of the drone ship. I don't think they're using. I don't think Starlink actually will help. I think what they've been doing is they've been working on bouncing the signal off to a different boat or a different vessel to be able to then do the uplink from there. And maybe that is using Starlink now. Maybe they're starting to use Starlink on those ships compared to but I don't think they're beaming directly. I think that the big problem and the reason they're able to get more stable footage was more how do you get it off of the ship? Because if you go straight up or, try to get the signal from the ship, the feed up to the sky and up to the satellites, it just is too hard. You can't really get through that plasma. It's just too much interference. So I think that the big groundbreaking thing was how do you get it to relay off something else? And I think they figured that out because it's much better now. We mentioned this a little bit ago, Kevin. They do burn up. Stage 2 on these low Earth orbit missions will just re-enter and burn up, and that's the end of their life. And they intentionally close off a section where it will burn up. Most of the time, it's in the Indian Ocean. They'll do a deorbit burn and drop down into a section of the Indian Ocean. We're in the middle of nowhere, and they do an exclusion zone, so there's no planes and boats in the way that could potentially get harmed from the re-entry. So, yeah. Other missions, higher energy missions, they'll just kick them out into a graveyard orbit. Let's see. I'm not sure the real YouTube. Sorry if sometimes the mods have to be aggressive if people are spamming too much or saying inappropriate things. So sorry if you got timed out. Sorry about that. We don't mean to do that, but we have an awesome team of moderators. The internet can be a very, very, very strange and weird place, but we have such an awesome community here. So everyone thank the mods. Sorry if you've ever felt like they've wronged you. Sometimes decisions are made in just a blink of an eye, but they do such a great job of it's YouTube. So you have trolls, we have people that are negative, we have people that are saying inappropriate things. So it's just, this is important for me that this community stays positive. We're here to watch spaceflight. We're here to learn about spaceflight. We're here to cheer on humans doing awesome things and just furthering our species. So we try to moderate it well to keep people on track and to keep people on the same page, and just here to be a positive and role models of the internet, to be excited about something to look forward to and not just bicker and argue about everything that everyone's bickering and arguing about now. This is the one place we can come together and just be excited. So sorry about that. But this is from Big Fat Crazy Banana. Your dad. How will you stream the Falcon 9 launches 1/1/21 8 F9 1 Falcon? How will you stream the 9 launches? 1/1/21. 8 Falcon 9s and 1 Falcon. So those are just placement dates. I see what you're saying. When the launch is that far ahead, it's not like there's not going to be 9 launches in a month. It's just that right now that's their no earlier than date. The manifest just will straighten out as we get closer. Anything on a manifest that you see for an upcoming launch, it's more than about 3 months away, it will for sure move. If it's 6 months away or a year away, it's definitely moving, unless it's like a Mars mission, or some kind of mission like that. Those ones tend to stick a little bit better. But if it's just like a CRS-22 and it says right now that it's January 3rd, it won't be January 3rd. It just won't be. Like, there's almost no way. Although those missions are a little better backlogged than some other missions. But spaceflight always moves to the right, and the manifest just kind of has rough dates of upcoming things, but they just kind of give it a approximation date. So let's see here. Joel Sapp says, I love how SpaceX Gwen has women engineers host the launch cast. They are all great. I absolutely agree. SpaceX has a very diverse group of engineers and employees. And I think that's a very important thing. Obviously, the Earth is not just full of old white guys. There's more people out there than old white guys to do rocket engineering. And it's really awesome to see people from everywhere getting excited. And that's what this is all about. Is I don't care who you are, where you live, what you look like, how you grew up. Nowadays, you can actually learn about this stuff. You can actually become an actual freaking rocket scientist if you want to. You might not be able to work in the United States because of ITAR restrictions, but there's other aerospace engineering companies all around the world. Rocket Lab has a lot easier restrictions on their stuff that they do in New Zealand. It's just definitely a cool era that you can grow up and be relatively disconnected just 5 years ago, and all of a sudden now be super connected, super inspired, and actually make a huge impact in your own life, but also in spaceflight. So yeah, I think it's awesome that SpaceX helps remind people that there's role models for everyone. There's everyone can look up to someone that might look like them, represent a culture that they grew up in, or that their family that they can just visualize, right? I think that's important. And I think some of us might take advantage, or take that for, what's it called? Take that for granted, not for advantage. We might take that for granted, how important that actually is. But yeah, I think the diversity at SpaceX is awesome. So yeah. And it's true too. You walk around, trust me, I've walked around SpaceX many times. There's people from all walks of life, and it is the coolest thing. That's what I love about walking around there. A lot of people are just wearing t-shirts, jeans. And they're young, like they're in their 20s, they're fresh out of college, and not all, but they have just people from all over the spectrum. You have metalheads, you've got, you have people that are, it just doesn't look like what you'd think a rocket factory in an aerospace company would look like. It looks, I don't know. It's just different. And I think that's really cool that you just see different people with all different, with like pink hair and like all, just all the different things, tattoos and everything. It's not this like highly buttoned up, here's how we present ourselves and this is only it. It's like, no, you have people all over the place doing whatever they're comfortable with as long as they're kicking butt. And I think that's really cool. Petty says, any thoughts on making a video about nuclear thermal propulsion? Yes, absolutely. 100%. That is in the list. Whenever you guys want me to do a video, trust me, it's probably on a list already. It just takes me so long, and I'm working on cranking videos out faster. If you can't tell, as we put 2 videos out back to back, week to week, and did like 8 live streams. Now this next one's gonna be really long, but I think we'll get it out pretty quick because we actually have a lot of the work done for it already. So yeah. Rick Strickland says, thank you, Tim. Your rock suggestion: a pole when Starship will fly with the first Starlink satellite load. Starship with satellite load. That might be. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm more curious about super heavy boost. We'll do super heavy booster first, and then later on, remind me, and we'll do one about Starlink on Starship, because that could be game changing for SpaceX, big time. Ryland Cripps says you should look at rotating detonating rockets. Absolutely, the design is simple and no need for bulky turbopumps. I know rotating detonating rockets are super cool. Well, you still need. Oh yeah, you don't need, because the shockwave keeps them going. Yeah. I do need to look into that, and that'd actually be a really cool thing for aerospikes, actually. So if we see an aerospike because of the detonating wave, a rotation detonating wave rocket, count me in. That'd be awesome. This is from Chris. Is there a plan to integrate the Raptor on the Falcon 9? No. Chris, sorry, we've talked about this quite a bit. It's not, and I even said this earlier, you can't just swap them out. It's not Kerbal Space Program. If you put a Falcon 9, a Raptor on a Falcon 9, it's no longer a Falcon 9. It's a totally new rocket. Your mounting points, every bit of the rocket will change. You really can't do it. You can't do it. One of the big reasons is at over twice the thrust, all of a sudden now, so you'd have to have, 4 Raptor engines. In order to mount 4, you could maybe have one in the middle and then kind of a triangle, but you need one in the middle for that landing burn. And even that landing burn now will be substantially more aggressive. They would only have half the amount of time to do the landing burn, and you have to slam it on. So now you're going from, 1.5 Gs of deceleration to deceleration to like 3+ Gs, just screeching on the brakes. Anytime they want to do a landing, they way off the ability to hover. Your thrust to weight ratio would be really high. It's just, and all of everything changes. The ratios, the stresses on the vehicle, everything. It's a new vehicle. Your upper stage right now already is totally overkill. The upper stage Merlin 1D vacuum engine, totally overkill. It has a really high thrust to weight ratio. There's some missions, some of the older Starlink missions, they would do less than a 1 second burn to go because it's too powerful, even at its minimum throttle setting, to really be able to do some of those finer tune adjustments. So having a really high thrust engine, even if it's more efficient, isn't always, it wouldn't work. And why spend even $1 more on Falcon 9? Falcon 9 is making money. Falcon 9 is doing its job, fulfilling needs for customers. Why spend $1 more? Every dollar you spend on Falcon 9 now is taking away $1 from the potential of the Raptor on Starship. Get the Raptor on Starship, because once Starship is flying, it'll be 10 times cheaper than Falcon 9. So why even bother tweaking the Falcon 9 at all, right? We want Starship flying now. So let's put all of our resources into Falcon 9 or into Starship and make it happen ASAP. Because if it happens 6 months before, if it takes 2 years to develop a Raptor powered Falcon 9, that could have been like 2 years now the Starship could have been flying. So I think that's just the main reason. So good question though. But yeah, we definitely have to reiterate that one quite often. David says, do you think early crewed starships would have a crew launching on Dragon and rendezvousing after Starship refuels in orbit? I do believe that. I personally even think something like the Dear Moon mission, I think you'd have a really hard time, honestly, doing the Dear Moon mission where people are flying on Starship from the ground through ascent and landing, doing all of the regimes of it. I could see that being a different mission, and because I think they're gonna have to prove it out big time before people actually get on top of that and do ascent through landing on Starship only. Oh man. So I have time for one more here before I get out of here. Big Den says, I would like you to tell us what is happening in Boca Chica. So I talk about it every single week on the podcast. Every single week I talk about what's happening at Boca Chica with Starship development. If you need more of that, the podcast I do is Our Ludicrous Future. OUR, ludicrous. Good luck spelling ludicrous future. Or go to olfpod.com. That's olfpod. I talk about Starship development and Boca Chica stuff every single week. It's a constant source of news. We have other really good channels that are covering what's happening down in Boca Chica. NASA Spaceflight does daily videos of what's happening at Boca Chica. We have Marcus House making great videos every week. We have What About It? Felix making videos constantly. Like twice a week, I think, on Boca Chica updates, basically. You have Space Eccentric. You have Tomorrow. Still one of my all-time favorite news shows for space news is Tomorrow, TMRO. TMRO, just 4 letters. Tomorrow on YouTube is awesome. Yeah, we have people covering that stuff. If you need to know about Boca Chica, just all of those will give you more content than you could ever imagine what to do with. I'm trying to do, I try to do longer form stuff now. I try to do stuff that's more evergreen, things that answers bigger questions, because that stuff changes so often. By the time you answer it, it's probably wrong. And literally ask any of those guys, they'll say, yeah, it's exhausting because I'll put a video up and then I'll be like, oh, well, by the time I put it up, it's already wrong. I'm trying to do things, even the videos I do, even though they're trying to be really evergreen, I still have times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just put this up. Like when I was making an hour and 15-minute long video on SLS versus Starship, and half of my video had to change because they chose Starship for the Artemis program, which I just did not see coming. And so I was kind of pitting them too much at each other, and now they're kind of on the same team for the Artemis program. A lot of the script's tone changed, and a lot of the numbers changed too. So yeah, so definitely there's lots of great creators out there doing awesome work. So all right, guys, I think it's time I get out of here. It's been, let's see, we're at 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's time for me to get out of here, get some breakfast or something. So, all right, one more time reminder, if you guys want some awesome merchandise for yourself and help me do what I do, there is 10% off this shirt today. This is the full flow stage combustion cycle shirt. Go to shop.everydayastronaut.com. Use coupon code LAUNCHDAY, all one word, lowercase launch day. But you can grab lots of other cool stuff. Don't forget, we've got lots of other apparel for your nerdy needs, my friends. We've got you covered. We're also getting some new accessories here soon, so stay tuned. This will be a little bit more packed in the near future, and we've just got some new exciting stuff coming out. So stay tuned. Yeah, so shop.everydayastronaut.com if you want to help me do what I do, or if you want to join our awesome community, our awesome Discord channel, go to patreon.com/everydayastronaut, where you can hang out with us, have fun, learn, see kind of behind the scenes of how these things happen, and ask questions to a community of people that if they don't know the answer, we can find it. That's what I love about our community, is people are everyone's learning together, and it's just fun. It's just, Discord's just been great. So, yeah. So, updates on European shipping. Yep. We're working on it. We're working on it. It's changed a little bit from what I thought, but, we have a pretty good solution that will hopefully be up. Like I said, we're trying to do it before the holidays, so it's a pretty big investment, though, to be able to do it. So, wish us luck. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for hanging out. Have a good one.